Hello and welcome. Today we are going to continue the two knights defense, and last time we were looking at the very sharp Max Lange attack after e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4 and knight f6, so two knights defense, and after d4 move which we call the Morphy attack because Morphy just found of that continuation. After e takes d4, white has few different opportunities, I said in my previous lessons. Also knight g5, also e4, e5, but the most direct, of course, is short castling, allowing black to capture on e4. And even black has nothing to worry after bishop c5, which leads to the Max Lange attack. Usually black prefers in this position to avoid those crazy complications lying by playing the simple knight takes e4. Black is following the opening rule, which says destroy your opening center when this action doesn't lead to a risky position. On the other hand, it looks that knight takes e4 does lead to a dangerous position for black. Look, the knight on e4 and the king on e8, both are poorly placed on the open e file. And white takes the advantage of this opportunity and pins the black's knight instantly. Rook e1. But what's the problem? The problem that black is having tactical solution, tactical trick, which prevents white from obtaining the decisive material advantage, because black would immediately challenge the center after d7 and d5. Black supports the knight on e4 and simultaneously attacks the bishop on c4. This situation looks pretty unpleasant for white. At the moment, white is 2 pawns down, in addition to the attacked bishop on c4. So what to do next? Bishop takes d5. This is the greatest move, and only this move solves white's problem. Because white has little time to waste. The bishop has been sacrificed, but white demolished black's position in the center, while knight on e4 becomes hanging. The main point of this bishop takes d5 move is that after queen takes d5 and knight c3, the blacks, all pieces in the center are pinned, also pawn on d4 and also knight on e4. So thanks to this nice tactical shot, white gets the piece back and black enabled to eliminate the knight. Once again, pay your attention that after d takes c3, white is simply plays queen takes d5 and his game is over. So white is winning instantly. Okay, but before going deeply in the bishop takes d5 variation, I would like to show you the other alternative. So another spectacular move here is knight c3. This original attempt has an idea to put the pressure on the d5 and e4 squares. So white is ready to sacrifice one more piece. The problem is that black has only but very strong response. D takes c5, c3. So black is accepting the sacrifice. Bishop takes d5, but white is just spending too much energy for winning this piece. After bishop e6, white's idea is quite questionable. Why? Because after rook takes e4, black immediately plays knight e7 and white is losing a full piece. The bishop on d5 is still hanging and pinned. White's bishop cannot move because queen on d1 is gone. So if white cannot capture on e4, so means that white is losing completely the initiative after bishop takes e4. Queen takes d1, rook takes d1, and capture on b2, bishop takes b2 and f6. Of course, white is having some compensation for a pawn, but black firmly completes his development, keeping the material advantage. By the force coming king f7, then bishop could go to c5 or to e7, rook comes to d8. Not enough compensation for white. So let's back to the mainstream. So, in that position, bishop takes d5. And knight c3. Black has to move the queen from d5. And we have few options here. Queen could go to d8, h5, a5, and even to f5. So first of all, let's say after queen d8, white keeps better chances, thanks to highly dominated pieces and the lack of black's development. Let's say rook takes e4 check, bishop e7, knight takes d4. So white clears the situation in the center, and black has to look carefully for white's threats. For instance, after knight takes d4, rook takes d4, and bishop d6, white is just plays bishop f4, winning the material. So black's pawn on d6 is gone. If in that position black plays short castling, that's still after bishop f4, it's quite unpleasant threats. Knight takes c6 and bishop takes c7 in many lines. White is definitely better. If black is trying to annoy white's pieces after f7, f5, white simply plays rook f4. This tactical opportunity helps white to keep the advantage. Short castling, and after bishop e3, the bishop is locked on c8, and black still cannot solve the problem of white's central control. So white is better in all these lines. So this variation just illustrates the sense of the position. As long as white could keep the development initiative, black is suffering from heavy pressure over the central files. Okay. So queen h5 move deserves more serious attention. Black's idea is to pin f3 knight. Indeed, it leaves white without the important knight f to g5 resource, which only leads to the trading of queens. So with no better choice, white must go for knight takes e4. And now, pay attention that black's position could become very, very dangerous. Let's say one game finished here instantly after bishop e7, bishop g5, short castling. Looks like black is fine for a second, but after knight g3, this is a double attack over the black's queen on h5, and at the same time hanging position of bishop on e7 leads to the material loss for black. So queen g6, bishop takes e7, and white wins a piece. So that's why already in this position black has to be very careful, and probably only move is bishop e6. Also black is trying to set the opportunity castle in the long side. Now if white is just going simple something like knight g5, black is answering long castling with a very good position. So queen on h5 situated very active. That means that it's no time. White has to play more aggressively. Eventually, there is only one way to keep the initiative, is to play bishop g5, trying to prevent black from obtaining short castling. According to latest theory, so even in this position, black is still keeping quite okay position by playing bishop d6. But this move cannot be recommended in general because white keeps slightly but long-term advantage. As after takes, and let's say bishop f4, we next capture on d4, and black is having isolated pawns in the center. And if black tries to play more aggressively, what does it mean more aggressively? h6 or h6, let's say. Of course, after bishop h4, black cannot play g5. Knight f6 check. What else possible? After h6, white even has some better opportunities. So white can play bishop f6, completely destroying black's development. So black cannot move the bishop because bishop takes g7. Also, g takes f6 is not possible because knight takes f6 with a check. So black finds himself in a very, very difficult position. You say, okay, why to play h6? Maybe just develop the bishop first. Let's say to play bishop b4. But even that move leads to the serious trouble for black. After c3, white is ready to sacrifice the material for keeping the initiative and the strong attack. Takes, b takes. At the same time, white is having pawn down, but all his pieces are very good centralized and all are developed. After bishop a5, queen d2, bishop b6. One game just finished immediately after knight g3. Look, black's queen somehow trapped. There is no way to play queen g4 because rook comes to e4 and the queen is gone. At the same time, after queen g6 and knight h4, same problem. The queen is lost just after 14 moves. Black resigned. So, it's so dangerous position here. h6, bishop f6. So, continues the main line. So, what happened in that case? Queen a5 seems like only. Intending now to capture on f6. But knight takes d4. The piece sacrifice allows white to start an immediate attack. So black's king is still badly placed in the center. G takes f6, knight takes f6, king e7, and here white has immediate win by using a very nice decoying idea. Look, still the greatest target for white pieces is the queen. After b4, instantly black is losing because queen takes b4 not possible, since after knight d5 the queen is gone. So any better answer? Queen g5, knight takes e6, f takes e6, queen d7 check, king takes f6, and rook takes e6, with a quick checkmate to follow. So just to conclude everything, black is keeping defensive resources in that line, but I would rather follow the main stream, which we would examine now. So better and the most obvious and the strongest continuation for black in that position is queen a5. Let's pay attention. So not queen h5, not queen d8, not queen f5. So just play normally. Queen a5. So white has to capture the knight on e4. But the question, we capture with the rook or with the knight? So let's see what would happen in case of rook takes e4. So white simply captures the pawn, threatening discovery check. So white is of course capturing the knight, and after bishop e6, capture on d4, takes on d4, and queen takes d4. Looks very great, very good position, of course, for white. But even here, after rook d8, black is doing fine. Also, we can recommend here to play rook d8 immediately. Let's back. So in one famous game between Oive and Reti, 1920, happened knight takes d4 move, which leads to the very, very sharp position. So very interesting complications. So white tries to use the bad position of the black skin in the center with this interesting sacrifice. So after knight takes d4, and queen takes d4, what's the problem here? The problem is that black immediately can protect the knight after f7, f5. Of course, possible immediately to play bishop e6 and then rook comes to d8, but f5 is a more principal move. Of course. Now, white has no time for capturing the knight on e4, which looks great, because queen takes e1 with a checkmate. Bishop g5 is the most natural continuation. At the same time, white connects rook and threatening queen d8 check and intending knight takes e4. So many threats by just one move. Queen c5. Only answer. So black is counter-attacking. So this important resource has an idea to get rid of white's actively placed queen on d4. After queen d8 check and king f7, apart from the queen, none of white's pieces can create the immediate threat. When black's king is quite safely placed on d6. So also black is intending just to play queen d6, trading all the pieces. So white has to play very fast. Knight takes e4. F takes f4. And what to play now? Rook takes e4 can be met by bishop f5. And after queen takes a8 and bishop takes e4, white's attack has just disappeared. Black is keeping the piece up. So instead of rook takes e4, white is trying to increase pressure over the black's position, just to play rook a to d1. So white has nothing else to improve. So, and this is the last chance to bring more wood into the fire. So white completed his development. Rooks got so best outpost, but black destroyed everything with one edit and distracting sacrifice. So look at that greatest shot. Bishop d6. Sacrificing the sleeping rook on h8. Black is capturing important piece. White's attacking piece is a bishop. So the queen is trapped and will be buried inside the black's camp. When black's bishop pair will be aiming successfully white's king side. Look at that. Black is already intending to play bishop h3 with the decisive threat of mate on g2 and at the same time attacking the queen on h8. It's absolutely clear that white's queen would never return back. White almost forced to play in this position f4. Queen h4, avoiding any tricks. Once again, black is intending to continue the attack. So after rook takes e4, for a moment it looks like white managed to obtain some counterplay. But the next move is a nice illustration to the powerfulness of the bishop's pair. Look at the next move, just fantastic. Bishop h3, this is brilliant move prepared by Richard Reti. Black continues his attack with another greatest sacrifice. So the main point of this move is to exploit the weaknesses of the white's g2 pawn, which leads to unstoppable attack against the white's king. After queen takes a8, black is finishing the game by bishop c5 check, king h1, bishop take g2, blowing apart the last shelter. Black's finally achieved his target, so white's king is caught in a mating net. King take g2, check, king h1, king f1, queen f3, or same about king h1, queen f3, king e1, and final move, queen f2, checkmate. 22 moves. So this greatest miniature showed us that knight takes d4 is not so promising continuation. So white has to play the normal knight takes e4. And this is the best move according to the latest theory in that line. So let's move it again to our main continuation. Let me stop and I back the. So after e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, d4, e takes d4, short castling, and knight takes e4. It's a very messy line. Rook e1, d5, bishop takes d5, queen takes d5, knight c3, and so we checked queen d8, we checked queen h5, and we came to conclusion that the best continuation is still queen a5, and white cannot play, not knight takes d4. Rook takes e4 also, not promising much. So white has to go for knight takes e4, and which is the best and of course the strongest continuation. So black must play bishop e6. Because less essential is bishop e7, which allowing white to keep the unpleasant initiative by playing bishop g5. Bishop e6, bishop takes e7, king takes e7, knight takes d4. White is better, black's king in the center, and the intended knight takes d4. Queen takes d4, once again black has to spend time protecting his pawn on g7, and also white is intending to play simply something like knight g5. So bishop e7 is quite dangerous, so seems like black has to play bishop e6. And in that case, we are reaching the main position of the Morphy attacking two knights defense, when white needs to play knight e to g5, trying to win back the pawn on e6. Once again, knight takes d4 doesn't work. Don't forget that your rook on e1 is hanging. So knight e to g5 is the main continuation. Long castling. All is forced. Knight takes e6. F takes e6. Rook takes e6. And bishop d6. So black's bishop has been placed very actively. White's best chance is to send away black's rook from d8 and to obtain the control over the e-file. Let's say the immediately queen e2 move doesn't work in this position because it could be met by the powerful queen h5 answer. And white has to work hard for a draw, since all black pieces are dangerous posed towards the white's king side. Let's say bishop g5, losing because bishop takes h2, check. Knight takes h2 and queen takes g5. Also quite dangerous for white to play h3. Why? Because black is just winning control over the e file after rook e8, bishop d2 and knight e5. White is getting into the very difficult position after rook takes e8, rook takes e8, knight takes d4, takes, knight takes, and knight c4. Look at that. Catastrophe. Both pieces are hanging. And if white, what white can do? Knight takes f3 threats. So knight on f3 almost pinned. So we cannot move it. Black is definitely better in this situation. So that's why white almost forced, instead of playing queen e2, develop first the bishop. So best opportunity is to play bishop g5. Now, in case rook d2 e8, white really plays queen e2. And next idea is to go rook e1. Despite the fact we have the quite similar position of all the pieces, and the pawn structure is a bit different. Black is having extra pawn in the center, but in the endgame this pawn sometimes could become a weakness. So after rook d2 f8 is the best continuation. So black is intending to capture on f3 and then to capture the bishop on g5. White plays queen e2. So both sides play the most logical moves. Thus, in this critical position, the chances are pretty equal. Please don't blunder here. Rook takes f3 doesn't win. It's only losing. Because white has the strong response, contradiction. Rook e8, and white is winning, not black. After rook takes e8, queen takes e8 is a checkmate. So, black has in this position a few opportunities, but I would just simply stick to h6, bishop d2, and queen h5, intending the pawn on h2 in some lines. And the position remains quite equal. So in summary of that line, which we studied, this open variation of the two knights defense, or the Morphy attack as we call it, leads to a very sharp unbalanced positions, where worth of every move is very high. However, with careful play, black could solve his opening problems. And the next lesson I would like just to bring some games which were played with this line. So different traps and different very short games. You can see how to punish your opening for the opening mistake in this Morphy's line. Thanks everybody for watching. Follow me on my next lesson about the Morphy attack and the two knights defense. All the best. If you have any question, you can contact me on my website www.chesslessons.wordpress.com. Thanks everybody, and see you next time. Bye.